In the heart of rural Alaska, where the nearest town was 15 miles of winding frozen road away, an elderly woman had built a life of quiet solitude. Margaret Hansen, 73 years old with silver hair and weathered hands, had lived in this small timber cabin for over 40 years. Her days followed a gentle rhythm: morning coffee by the fire, afternoon walks through the pines, evening reading in her favorite chair. She had chosen this isolation decades ago, finding peace in the silence that others might find lonely. But she wasn't truly alone. Her constant companion was a 6-year-old Siberian Husky with ice blue eyes and a thick gray and white coat. The dog had been with her since he was a puppy, and in the years since her husband's passing, he had become more than a pet. He was her protector, her companion, her reason to get up each morning and venture into the cold. On this particular February morning, the sky had turned an ominous shade of gray. A storm was coming. The local radio warned of a severe winter storm, heavy snow, dangerous winds, near zero visibility expected by afternoon. Margaret moved through her storm preparations with practiced efficiency: extra firewood inside, lanterns filled and ready, water stored. She filled the Husky's bowls and checked his outdoor shelter, though she knew he'd likely stay inside with her through the worst of it. As she straightened up from setting down his water bowl, a wave of dizziness washed over her without warning. Her vision blurred at the edges, her chest felt tight, and her left arm tingled with an unfamiliar numbness. She tried to walk toward her chair, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Something was very wrong. Margaret's knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the worn rug in front of the fireplace, the room spinning around her. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was the Husky's anxious whine, close to her ear. When she didn't respond to his nudges, the dog began to pace. He'd never seen his human like this, so still, so silent. He barked, sharp and loud, the sound echoing in the small cabin. Still, she didn't move. Outside, the storm had arrived in full force. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, and the wind howled like a living thing. The Husky ran to the door, then back to Margaret, then back to the door again. An instinct older than training told him what he had to do. Using his weight, he pushed down on the door handle, something he'd learned by watching her 1,000 times, until the latch gave way. The door swung open, and Arctic wind rushed in. The Husky looked back one last time at his motionless companion. Then he ran, into the storm, into the blinding white, driven by something deeper than thought. The snow was deep, and the wind fought him with every step, but Huskies were bred for exactly this. His thick double coat protected him from the worst of the cold, and his powerful legs drove him forward through drifts that would stop most dogs. He knew this route. He and Margaret walked parts of it often, though never this far, never alone. He navigated by instinct and memory, by the faint scent markers buried under fresh snow, by pure determination. Mile after mile, he pushed through the wilderness. The cabin was nearly 3 kilometers from the nearest human settlement. His muscles burned, and ice crusted his thick fur, but he didn't slow. Finally, through the curtain of white, shapes began to emerge. Buildings, the edge of the small settlement. The Husky's instincts led him not to a house, but to the one place in town where vehicles with flashing lights sometimes came and went. The small rural medical clinic. He'd been here once before, years ago, when Margaret brought him after he'd injured his paw. Inside, 2 paramedics were preparing to head home before the storm made the roads completely impassable. When the male paramedic cracked the door to see what the commotion was, a snow-covered husky burst past him into the warmth. The husky barked, not aggressive, but urgent, insistent. His blue eyes were wild with something the paramedics recognized immediately. The female paramedic knelt down, trying to calm him, but the husky wouldn't be calmed.
Okay, easy now.
He ran to the door, looked back at them, ran back towards them, barking continuously. The pattern was unmistakable. The 2 paramedics exchanged glances. They'd both heard stories of dogs leading people to emergencies, but never experienced it themselves. Within seconds, they'd grabbed their gear and radioed their status. They were following a dog into a blizzard. The ambulance crept forward through the storm, headlights barely penetrating the wall of white, following the dark shape of the husky running ahead. The dog would run ahead, stop, turn to make certain they were still following, then continue. He was leading them. The road became rougher, less maintained. They were heading into true wilderness now. The female paramedic checked her GPS. There's a cabin marked about 2 clicks ahead. Hansen, Margaret Hansen. The husky suddenly veered off the main road onto a barely visible path. The ambulance followed, branches scraping its sides. Through the snow, the cabin appeared. The front door was open, snow drifting into the entrance. The husky disappeared through the open door. The paramedics grabbed their equipment and rushed after him. Inside, they found her. An elderly woman lay motionless on the floor near a dying fire, the husky standing guard over her. The female paramedic knelt beside her, fingers checking for a pulse, present but weak and irregular. Breathing shallow, skin cool to the touch, blood pressure dangerously low, possible stroke or cardiac event. The husky watched every movement, understanding somehow that these humans were helping, that he'd done what he needed to do. They worked with practiced efficiency, oxygen mask in place, ECG leads attached, IV line started, vitals continuously monitored. They lifted Margaret carefully onto their stretcher, securing her for the difficult journey back. As they carried her toward the door, the husky was on his feet immediately, following close behind. At the ambulance, the male paramedic hesitated. Protocols said no animals, but this wasn't a normal situation. He ran through a blizzard to find us, the female paramedic said. He's earned a ride. The husky jumped in without hesitation, settling on the floor beside the stretcher, his ice-crusted fur slowly beginning to thaw. The ambulance began its careful journey back. The 15 miles to the regional hospital would take nearly 40 minutes in these conditions. Inside, the female paramedic monitored Margaret's vitals continuously. Her condition was stable but critical. The husky watched the paramedics work, his blue eyes moving from their faces to Margaret's, understanding but helpless. Then something changed. Margaret's fingers moved, just slightly. The husky noticed immediately. Her eyes fluttered open behind the oxygen mask, confused and disoriented. She tried to speak, but the paramedic gently stopped her. "You're okay. You're in an ambulance. We're taking you to the hospital." Margaret's eyes searched the space, and then she saw him. her husky, covered in ice and snow, lying beside her. Her hand moved weakly toward him, and he inched forward, placing his large head where her fingers could reach. Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes. She understood, even through the fog of whatever had happened, what he had done. At the hospital, the emergency team was ready. They moved with swift precision, wheeling her inside, while the husky was gently kept in the waiting area. The diagnosis came quickly, a minor stroke, caught early because of how fast help had arrived. With medication and monitoring, the doctors said she would recover. The timing had saved her life. For 3 days, Margaret remained in the hospital, and for 3 days, the husky waited in the home of the female paramedic, who couldn't bear to take him to a kennel.
We need to increase the fluid rate now. Keep monitoring the saturation levels closely.
Yes, doctor. Increasing fluids now.
It's okay, boy. She's gonna be fine. We just have to wait here for the doctor to finish.
You're a good dog.
Your vitals look excellent, Mrs. Anderson. We're very pleased with your progress.
So when can I go home, doctor? I feel wonderful.
Let's plan for tomorrow morning.
You did so well recovering this week. Keep taking it easy, and you'll be back to normal in no time. He absolutely loves
Finally,
going for
the day
rides,
came when
especially
Margaret
with
was
you.
strong enough to go home. The ambulance made the journey
boy,
back,
isn't he?
this time in clear weather, with both of them inside. When they reached the cabin, the husky leaped out first, circling back to walk beside the stretcher as the paramedics helped Margaret inside. They'd cleaned the cabin, restocked her firewood, left their phone numbers in case she needed anything. As they prepared to leave, Margaret took each of their hands, unable to find words big enough for what she felt. The female paramedic simply smiled. "Thank your dog," she said. "He's the real hero here." When the ambulance disappeared down the snow-packed road, Margaret stood at her window, one hand resting on the husky's broad head. She moved slower now, tired more easily, but she was alive, and she wasn't alone. That evening, as she sat in her chair by the fire, the husky rested his head on her lap. She stroked his ears, her fingers tracing the ice-crusted fur that had carried him through a blizzard to save her life. "We did all right, you and I," she whispered into his fur. Outside, snow began to fall again, gentle this time, but inside the small cabin, by the warmth of the fire, they were home, together, and that was everything.